All right, so this is me at Darren Rogan on Twitter. I currently actually have my face, unlike every other fucker, so I don't know who you are, because everyone's got like a picture of a cartoon animal who's coming up and saying, hi, I'm such and such. So it is a bit harder on these events to put a name to a face, but it was very nice to meet you all last night, and we'll be here for the rest of the day as well. Who am I and why the fuck should you listen to me? And I'm going to swear a lot because I'm hungover. So I've been doing entrepreneurship for 20 years or so, startup, Web 2 guy. I used to live here in Brisbane and then I lived down the Gold Coast. I do the blockchain meetups down the Gold Coast. I'm the founder of ANN, one of the supporters of the event tonight. But it's not about me. This session is about me trying to give you some education. And particularly, I'm passionate about educating people in the space because I believe this is going to be a growth space for the next decade. And I think the early adopters, just like it was on the startup scene here in Brisbane 10 years ago, we are just at the beginning and we're going to have a long journey. So let's all work together and become a successful cohort. So before we get started, crypto tribes exist. Everyone has their own sort of biases, their own bags. I don't give a shit about your coin, don't tell me. And if I said something you don't like, that's fine, everyone's their own opinion. This is a permissionless network, you're welcome to your own opinion. It doesn't mean it's right, but you know, you don't have to tell me about it afterwards, okay? So I'm just gonna go through some blockchains and tell you what I think and just hopefully give you a little bit more knowledge about these. I'm not shilling anything. All right, so let's get to networks. The big daddy, the OG is Bitcoin. I consider that the sun, which is the center of the solar system of the entire network. It pulls us up, it pushes us down, at least for now. And we all know Bitcoin. We've had some good conversations about Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin. But one thing that Bitcoin does not have is a good programming language inside it to do more with it than actually store value or move money around. So if I want to do some complex logic, because I'm like a software background solution guy, if I want to do something more interesting with blockchain, I have to take it off chain, and then we have a trust issue, okay? And the block script issues was the reason why they went into Ethereum, because it was too hard to do programming with Bitcoin and do something more complex. And the reason it's called a smart contract is because it actually moves money around. It's really just a computer program. So, but what it does do is it allows you to exchange value. And in that exchange of value, that then solves real life problems. It doesn't like kick out to a bank. It actually does what's called a bearer asset transfer, which just means that the actual value can be moved through. So Ethereum's great. A lot of people use Ethereum. And then we have like EVM chains. Now these are the people who sort of have taken Ethereum and then copied a bit of it to then create their own chain with their own variation or cash grab or whatever they want to do. But what that enables you to do is move from Ethereum or these other chains, layer 2s and layer 1s, and take your code and then put it somewhere else. Now Solidity and the Ethereum EVM is not the best technical solution, but neither was JavaScript, folks. And JavaScript powers the whole fucking internet now, and it's now the most dominant language, and it was a piece of shit when it came out. So it's on every computer, nearly every piece of software, but the same is what's happened with Solidity in the smart contract land, okay? And that's why a lot of people take these EVMs. So if I'm going to spin up my own L1 or L2, it makes sense to attract those development staff, the people who understand those, instead of coming up with your own language, right? So you got like the Move language, which is the new popular one, and you'll see a bunch of people moving towards that. That's like the Facebook language. And then you have Rust, which is then used by Solana. But these are big languages trying to attract someone. Now you think about if you're going to start your own country, you're not going to start with a new language and force everyone to learn a new language. It stops the adoption, all right? So these are all about adoption at the end of the day. Then we have things like Flow, and Flow is the crypto kitties that then did their own chain because they sort of completely fucked Ethereum. So then they started their own. They're doing a great job at mass adoption. That's the Top Shots, that's the AFL Mint, that's the UFC Mint, going hard on brands and bringing people into the space. So they're all fine as far as I'm concerned. And you have Solana, which is proof of history, very interesting. They use a Rust programming language, which is an existing language in the marketplace, which means they were able to get a lot of developers. They also have a lot of funds behind them in Silicon Valley. So they've done really well, except for they have some other issues like their chain falls over. And then we have Cardano, which has been around for a very long fucking time that I just don't even look at it anymore. And it's apparently doing well, but it's just taking forever, if you know what I mean. All right, let's keep going. So one thing I'll talk about is congestion. Congestion is really important to understand in all blockchains. So this is a website called Transaction Fees, and it's a live one. And here on the right, you'll see the Bitcoin network, and you'll be able to see the congestion on that network. So the way a decentralized system works, it does some logic, right? And every node in the blockchain processes the same logic and comes to a consensus. And we all say, yep, that's the result. We agree that was in the block, and let's keep going. Now, in Bitcoin, that's really just transfers, and we know that how much they cost. And you see people come up, but if it gets busy, we basically have Uber surcharges kicking in, and that's the increase in the fees. And why we do that is we have congestion-based pricing because we have limitations on the road system. They're basically a monorail, only so many people can get into one block. So what happens when there's more demand than there is space? And that's the point where the surge charge kicks in, and if you want to get in the block, you pay higher. If you don't, and it's not important, you can pay less money and just wait at the bus stop until that fee comes down low enough and your transaction will be processed. Why is this important? Well, we've seen how important this is when we move over to more the programmable web, and this one, you'll actually be able to see some of the icons of the smart contracts and where these people are coming from live, so you can see what's actually being used. So if I'm in Ethereum and there's too many people wanting to use, the gas price goes up. We've all had like an enormous gas price. We've all had our friends lose a couple of Ethereum trying to buy on other side deeds. In the gas wars that kick in. That is peak demand and people paying an enormous amount of money to skip the queue. Now some people think that's a bad idea, but the guy who lost his money in the DeFi position would disagree with you because when they hit a peak in Solana, at this point they're doing quality of service, which means they're dropping certain transactions, right? Because they can only fit so many in, and they've made a conscious decision not to do fee-based pricing because they want to keep it cheap. And that's all well and good till the spam kicks in, and then it pushes the throughput through, and then they have to drop transactions. Polygon had a similar issue, and they had to up their fees to just make it cheaper, because to make it more expensive to sort of take out the spam. Think about email. Email costs next to nothing to do, and some fucker must click on those Nigerian print stuff because they keep happening. And if it didn't work, they wouldn't do them. So there just needs a small amount of return in order for it to be a good ROI on what they're doing. So then they're trying to remove spam and so forth. So the big bit is coming back. Congestion is gas, right? If you're doing something more complex on a smart contract, it uses a certain amount of gas. And then if it's busy, you're going to pay more. There are websites you can have a look at that normally do like a historical time of what's good and for gas and not. We're in Australia, so we're pretty good for generalized processing, but you will notice this if you're trying to get into like a popular mint, you know, like the Bored Ape, like the Other Deeds one that I think they did on purpose. Anyway, moving on, EVM chains, L1 and L2. What is the difference between an EVM chain, what is an L1 and an L2? EVM is basically solidity, you know, it's Ethereum compliant. Why do we do that? It's got the largest amount of developers, it's got the biggest economic mass, it's got a whole bunch of people who already know how to use it, tools. I can suck all of that up into my new chain, be that layer 2, layer 1. So that is why we hear this concept of an EVM chain, and that's what it means. And the reason is to make it easy to bring people over from Ethereum. L1s and L2s, I'll get to in a sec. All right, so let's talk about chains a bit more. The most popular layer 1 programming chain is Ethereum. We have other EVM compliant chains like Polygon, Binance, Shitchain, Phantom, Avalanche, XDAI. We also have like non-EVM chains, Cosmos, Polkadot, Solana. Solana is actually not too bad except for some of the issues that it has. But the point I was making is there's a lot here and there's a lot in this layer 2 phase. And that's really just trying to increase the scalability of Ethereum because scaling is an issue as it becomes more and more popular. Even Bitcoin has its own scaling network called the Lightning Network, and that's to try to add additional utility onto Bitcoin. But you are depositing your funds into a secondary network, And so the security profiles are not the same. We do have this concept of layer 2s, and then in layer 2s we also have a thing called the side chain. These are all scaling, right? These are all mechanisms to do it. Like, how do I give you fast speed but not reduce the security that some of these blockchains give you? Oh, something's up there. But anyway, so on the left, you'll see a diagram here that tries to explain what a side chain is, what a main chain is, and what a layer 2 is. Because you will hear these terms over and over, and they're actually not that complex. Just like most of crypto, there's a lot of bullshit words making it sound more complex than it is. But basically, we have our main chain, which would be like your Ethereum, it could be Bitcoin, it could be the one that has no dependency in anyone else. That's the settlement layer. That could be Solana, because I've already heard of people talking about doing layer 2s on Solana. So this is your main chain. A side chain, a Polygon POA chain, which is the one everyone uses at the minute, it's technically a side chain, which means it has no dependency on Ethereum. And when your funds go over, you have to trust this person in the middle over here. So you give your funds basically to me, and I'm like, I'll deposit those funds for you in Polygon. Right? Now that's a bridge, and you have to trust the intermediate who does that, and that's like outside blockchains at the end of the day. Now, layer 2 actually has a hard dependency on the blocks. So over here, it's basically, think of it like a zip-up bus. I'm going to take like 1,000 transactions, zip them all up, and then push them back down into the next block. And that's how most of these roll-ups work in like a mental model. So your Arbitrum, Optimism, they all are basically zipping up a bunch of transactions processed on this layer 2, so you can get more throughput faster, and then they put the results back onto the main net. And that's basically what all layer 2s do in some form or fashion. The output of their transaction as execution chains get pushed back on the main chain. Where a side chain, which was great, but it's just less secure because it doesn't have those sort of direct dependencies. You can't do what's called a trustless bridge transfer. So this is why people keep pushing for these layer 2s, because when you start talking about large amounts of money, you want to make sure you reduce these sort of bridging, because they are, honeypots for attacks and security and so forth. And we've seen that over and over again, that these bridges get taken down. So keep going. Ethereum is going to scale because one of these people will get it right. It's not doing a centralized scaling design. It's doing a let the market have a crack, have lots of attempts with different variations, and some of them are doing better than others. And we will see which is the best technical solution, and then which is the most market adopted one. Because the market adoption does not have anything to do with how good they are technically. Alright, so the other thing about layer 1, my text is completely gone off like this. It's got a hangover too. Right, so here what I was trying to say on the text is gone is basically saying that the alternative layer 1 narrative has been cheaper, faster transactions than Ethereum. Now, that may no longer hold as the additional layer 2s are getting cheaper and faster. And as they become cheaper and faster, you start to get the security of the Ethereum layer 2, and you also can have the speed of these other layer 1s, because they haven't actually solved their congestion problems. Most of them still have the same congestion network. The only reason it's cheaper is because no one's fucking using it. And when people use it, the prices can go up just the same, because congestion on a road is congestion on a road. And if you've got no one on your road, you can have very fast speeds and so forth. And we've seen this with Avalanche, we've seen this AVAX, we've seen this with even layer 2s, like Polygon at some point have been more expensive than the layer 1, because there's been congestion at that time on that network more than the underlying base network. So I'm just trying to make you rethink that narrative and realize that the average person isn't going to care which layer 1 or 2 it is. They're going to go do some feature or function, some service that's going to be retrieved. And from then, we now make the decisions about what's going to be there. We have no idea who's going to win, but it'll be an interesting journey over the next couple of years. So what do we do with blockchains? Primarily, we're doing two main use cases at this point. One is DeFi. to a lesser degree, CFI, DeFi, which bastardized it, but DeFi and money. How do we make effective use of money? We're able to use what are called rich person tricks, being able to get access to capital without capital gains and selling, which is the primary use case of DeFi at the minute, which those tricks have been used by rich people for a long time, and we're able to use those too. So DeFi is not going to go away, but the average person doesn't give a shit about DeFi. They don't care about their own money. They don't care about their own credit card. They just want to know they got enough money to buy a beer or a DJ and bear or whatever it is. So I don't believe DeFi is the thing that's going to take the majority of people, the next 100,000 people in Australia into crypto. I think it'll be culture, and I believe it's going to be NFTs. So what is an NFT? What you think of an NFT is probably incorrect, because what you're seeing a use case of the technology which could be applied in many ways, and you're looking at it as a collectible or so forth. But a non-fungible token is a unique asset on a blockchain. That's it. It's just a unique asset. Anything can be an NFT. I was walking around Disneyland a couple of months ago with the kids going, that's going to be an NFT, that's going to be an NFT, that's going to be an NFT. But NFTs are much more than collectibles. NFTs are good, but they can be better. Today we use them for communities, we use them for PFPs, we use them for collectibles, we use them for music, but they can be used for much more. This is the first use case. It's retail driven, and it gets us to evolve the tools, technologies, and adoption. One of the first NFTs that no one really talks about is actually Uniswap v3. Uniswap is an automated market maker that does a fixed price curve for transferring funds, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's a exchange, right? So you can go there and switch one coin to another. Now in V2, you used to just put your money in, and for every dollar you put in, you got an LP token for that dollar. In V3, they created this thing called concentrated liquidity. What it allows you to do is take your money, and if you look at the exchange rate of the US dollar to the Australian dollar, it only fluctuates normally within a 20 to 10 cents range, and allows you to take all of the capital that was previously used and lock it down in a range. In doing so, it has stopped the fungibility of people's positions. So how do I ensure that your money is correctly identified to you, the holder? And we do that through NFTs. They've got a lovely NFT, it's dynamic, it's an SVG, so the graphics look really good. But DeFi and NFTs are the same thing. There's no like collecting, there's no PFP, there's nothing here apart from a financial position. I also work with some other companies. This one I quite like because I think you can do a lot more than pretty pictures and conspicuous consumption. This one is a charity. Little Phil is a small donation, well, it's not small, it's a donation platform that allows companies through secondary sacrificing and so forth to donate to the charity. They are a registered charity here in Australia, and I've been working with them with a couple of things. This one in particular is around how to do microloans. So how do we give money to small businesses in South America? And in doing that, we believe that will have a large economic value. Rather than just giving people money in a charity, what we're trying to do is get them to build businesses. And how do we do that? We bring liquidity to these places, and we use NFTs as the unique documents and loans, so that it's all easily traceable, it's all fully auditable, and we do what is most important to me, cost destruction on the execution of middleman businesses. And this is the thing that why blockchain is going to take over. Because as an innovation guy, most people don't care about the decentralization. Most businesses care about the cost destruction of doing business, which increases profits, gives me a business edge. I know this is a charity, but the same sort of thing can apply. Now let's go a bit more degen. Another one of the NFTs which I bought, which I think is fascinating, is WAGMI United. Now, WAGMI United have bought Crawley Town FC, which is a League 2 English Premiership real football with a round ball soccer team. And with it, the NFT holders like myself are actually making decisions on where the funds that have been raised are going to be used to buy players. Okay, and then there's jerseys and so forth. This is fascinating because the English Premier League, well, this is a feeder league to them. Now, I'm not going to say that it's worth buying. Do your own research. I'm done. I'll be very quick to get through the last 2 slides. But the idea of being able to have a ownership in an actual league team that could go and end up playing against Manchester United, going to the Champions League, I'm like, fuck it, yeah, let's buy some of these and we'll see what works and doesn't work. But you know, it's much more than a picture. These are actually 1155, so the artwork's exactly the same for everyone. But I'm just trying to broaden what you can do with the NFTs. Here's another company down on the Gold Coast called Stadius that I've been helping. They're doing redemptions using NFTs. They did one during the State of Origin at Game 3 at the Cavill in the Sunshine Coast, where they were getting people to come into the pub by giving them a free beer from Forex and with a partnership with the hotel, because they wanted you to come in, and with one free beer they were able to secure a lot more funding. I did a thing with Caesars Casinos back in the year. I think you're going to see this was quite popular. You start to see big magazines coming in. Like we got Time. This is their new cover, which comes out next week. This cover is actually up as an NFT, and they're now going to be releasing the covers of their magazines as an NFT, which is great because I have one of those NFTs, so I had to buy the cover as well. Not just magazines, we have art. Death Row, which is now in the hands of Snoop Dogg, has changed themselves to say they're going to be the first NFT metaverse label in the world. I bought his first song. I have the rights to remix, the acapella, the beats. I'm not going to do it. I just bought it because I thought it was a cool sort of thing. But the overview is that NFTs is more than pictures. It's more than community. It is a technology that will be able to blend these to deliver value to businesses and personnel. It's going to make life easier to collect capital, to organize people, and I think it's going to drive the future of ownership of everything. And what we're seeing today with the pictures is just the first wave. So I'm Darren Rogan. I'm on Twitter. Thank you very much for having me.